Hi everybody, my name's Jim Hemphill. I'm a features writer for IndieWire, and I'm very excited to be the moderator for tonight's event celebrating season 2 of Netflix's Beef, the 8-time Emmy-winning series. The new season of Beef has an all-new Beef and all-new characters and takes place at a country club very similar to the one that we are at tonight. IndieWire, my colleague Ben Travers called this season a bigger and better Beef, and other critics have hailed it as a masterpiece and hands down the best TV show of the year. I can't disagree, so I'm very excited to bring up the creative team and actors behind Beef, starting with creator, showrunner, director, writer, and executive producer Lee Sung Jin. Oscar Isaac, who plays Josh. Carey Mulligan, who plays Lindsay. Cailee Spaeny, who plays Ashley. Charles Melton, who plays Austin. Youn Yuh-jung, who plays Chairwoman Park. Director and executive producer Jake Schreier. Composer Phineas O'Connell. Costume designer Olga Mill. And editor Laura Zempel. So, Sunny, this season there's so many ideas swirling around in this thing, from the kind of generational conflicts to how love changes over the years to just different moral and ethical issues. Where do you even get started on something like this? Like, what was the initial spark for this season?
The initial spark was, again, real life. I, for some reason, can't write with my own imagination. I'm very dependent on my surroundings, and again, I was in my neighborhood and heard, let's call it a heated debate, as Oscar's character says in the show, coming from a couple's home. And the incident itself wasn't that interesting. It was when I was retelling it to people that everyone, younger, like Gen Z, they were just aghast. They're like, "Did you call 911? Or, are you gonna follow up?" He said, "What?" And everyone my age and older were just kind of like, "All right." So I thought that dichotomy of viewpoints about marriage was interesting, and I think for us it would have been very easy to just copy and paste a successful formula in season 1 and just do it all over again. It certainly would have made our days shorter. But I think everyone up here, what's been a true delight is that everyone wants to just make something that is true and honest and diving into something deeper. So that was a lot of conversations and a lot of hours to, discover all those themes you mentioned.
And how did you land on the country club milieu as a setting? Because it's a terrific setting for the show.
Thank you. The country club setting, again, I was house sitting for a friend who had recently come into a lot of money. And he was letting me use his country club membership in Montecito. And I kind of turned up my nose at him when he told me what the fees were. I'm like, there's no way that any place in this world is worth that amount of money. And I, used it for 3 days, and I'm like, let me see that application, please. And, that theme of hedonic adaptation that us humans are so good at, that felt like an interesting thing to tap into. And then, from my observation, this country club, all the members were silent generation or boomer, and all the employees were millennial or Gen Z. And in my mind, no matter how hard those employees work, they'll never become members. And I think a lot of people are feeling like that in 2026. Yeah, it sucks, yes, yeah. And, we certainly didn't intend to write about class. We initially just wanted to talk about, two couples. But when you're trying to write two couples honestly in 2026, you inevitably have to deal with the variable of capitalism. And, it is unhinged. And I think every interaction we have in our day-to-day life is influenced by class. And so until that changes, I think for all of us up here, we probably continually have to talk about it.
All right, well, since you brought up class, I actually want to jump over to Olga, because something that's great about this show is the way the costumes kind of convey class and status, and how they convey the changing class and status of the characters. Because over the course of the season, people's fortunes kind of ebb and flow and change, and you do a great job of sort of charting the characters' transformations through the costumes over the course of the season. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you wanted the clothes to express class.
I think like there's no way to separate clothing from class. If it's like a socioeconomic class, a creative class, and I think it's always like they're coming for us. A comparison, right? Like class only exists when it is bounced against somebody else that's next to you. So the same thing with clothing. It's about like two characters in a scene. Like even if I think about Josh and Troy, for example, Troy being like really casual, he has the privilege of like not needing to be in a suit the way that Josh does. So the sort of like the effort in dressing versus class was a big conversation.
Well, and for all the actors, I'm curious, like, how closely do you collaborate with Olga, and how important are the costumes in terms of helping you find your characters?
I'll go first. Massively. Like, I feel like, we had so many fittings. And I felt like every single time I wasn't doing a costume fitting, I was doing like proper character prep, because it would be obvious. Like I remember the first time we put on like that sort of raised black headband, I was like, oh, that's who Lindsay is. It was like a fact-finding mission through what Olga was and how she and Sunny had sort of, what they had prepped together and how they saw this world. I was like, oh, that's the tone, that's who these people are. Like, so I felt every fitting I did with Olga was like, it was clearer to me what the character was. And I actually don't think I've ever had, like, I don't think costume, I've worked with incredible costume designers, but there was so much time that we spent together on, because I guess because it's, you know, it's the longest format thing I've done for a long time, there was just so many costumes, and each one of them was so specific and so thoughtful about where my character was in her journey.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of, like Olga just talked about, that kind of specificity in relational costume. You know, that would definitely help understand the scenes, and also being able to bring in, you know, things that aren't necessarily in the script that would be inspiring to us. I know we hit on this whole Fisher King idea, but then, you know, I for some reason got really into the Fisher King myth for Josh in my weird actor way, and then Olga was like, that's great, let's give you a little fish necklace, and you designed this sweater, the purple sweater that he wears at the end that has this kind of king and, you know, these like water things happening, and tracing that would just give a lot of emotional potency to what we were doing. And that's a very unique way of approaching costumes that's all about storytelling and performance too.
Turtles. Olga, during our fitting, told me that she felt that Austin was kind of like a turtle, and she had this tortoise kind of earring that I would wear. And I was like, yeah, he's a turtle. That's why he has these very big shirts, kind of this shell that he exists in, and very high short shorts. And that was all Olga. And I was like playing with turtles in Mexico, sending pictures to Olga being like, it's Austin, it's Austin.
He is leaving out that the shorts were initially longer, and he had requested them to go higher because he wanted to beat Paul Mescal at the Game of Thrones.
And you did.
Who wants to see them?
All right, next question.
Well, Sunny, going back to the beginning, when you first come up with the idea and you know you've got enough to get started on a new season, who up here is the first person you start talking with? Is it Jake? Is it reaching out to the actors?
I mean, honestly, it's Ginny Howe at Netflix, because she calls all the shots. No, it really is, because I've made them my home because of the collaboration. I actually was pitching a lot of ideas during the awards run of season 1, like left and right, and no season 2 pickup. And I was kind of like, what's a guy got to do to get one around here? And she wisely pulled me aside and was like, you should only do a season 2 of Beef if you find something that you're passionate about. Like, season 1 can be limited. And so, it really is starting from the top, where you have these honest conversations that, like, does this feel true? And then it trickles down from the network to the Studio 824 to then our cast. My initial conversation with Oscar over Zoom when we first met was, I think, like 4 hours long, maybe, and we talked about quite literally everything. And you know, tears were shed, at least on my side, and you know, and it goes all the way down to our HODs, and then, you know, even you know, shout out to our writer's assistant and director's assistant, Madeline and Ben. I mean, just every single person on this show gave their entire being into you know, every aspect of it. And so yeah, it starts with conversations at the top, and then it never stops.
So you mentioned that Zoom with Oscar. Was Oscar the first person you cast?
Actually, the first person was Charles Melton, because yes, you know, as a Korean American, you know, everything I do will have a slice of the Asian American diaspora in it, and we covered a lot of it in season 1. And you know, for me, I never want to repeat myself. You know, my favorite bands, each album so different from one another. And one thing we didn't get to explore season 1 was that of someone who's half Korean. You know, a lot of the writers are half Asian, my daughter's half Korean, and so it felt like very ripe, fertile ground. And I had the pleasure of shooting a music video out in Korea for RM of BTS between seasons, and they're the best. And you know, I was being wined and dined by the chaebol, like, CEO conglomerate community. And I thought that was a slice of the Korean experience I'd never seen before, especially that slice being a tug of war for a character's identity. And so I had just seen Charles's performance in May, December, and was blown away like everybody else. And Gold House was doing a celebratory dinner for him, and I emailed the head of Gold House, and I was like, you gotta seat me next to Charles, because I'm gonna pitch him all of season 2. He was like, it's day of, I got Chloe Zhao next to him, I don't think I can do that. But this was pre-Hamnet, so he did. And I showed up, she was 3 seats down, and I was like, oh my God, they actually moved Chloe Zhao, that's crazy. I would not do that. But I sat next to Charles, I had his face photoshopped into all these storyboards, and I pitched him all of season 2, and you know, that son of a bitch waited till dessert to say yes, but he eventually did.
Charles, what do you remember about that first conversation, and what was the initial appeal for you of doing the show?
Sonny was sweating and shaking when he was showing me this picture of myself. No. Honestly, it was kind of a pinch me moment, you know. I mean, it was during when season 1 of Beef was out and they were doing press, and there was just something that resonated with me, and I think a lot of people on a universal level, with season 1 of Beef, and sitting next to Sonny, having him just tell me, oh, you know, I'm gonna do season 2, and I was like, oh, what is it about? And then he showed me a picture of myself and said, this is in our writer's room. And for me, you know, it's a very surreal moment to be working with who I believe to be one of the greatest artists and filmmakers, and Lee Sung Jin. So I couldn't believe it. So yeah, it was before they set the water down that I said yes. I just knew immediately.
That is not true.
Well, now, had you written any of the show before you approached the actors, or?
I think we had an early draft of the pilot, if I remember correctly, but it changed so much. The first episode went through 16 drafts before a shooting draft. And Cailee just made a face. No, it was a lot of drafts because we had a lot of conversations, and you know, Oscar and Carey, like that inciting incident, that fight was so essential, and we were constantly discovering things, even on set. I remember, Carey, there was something that was kind of bumping you, right, during the fight?
Yeah, there was, the fight was, I think we just felt the responsibility of getting the fight right. I mean, that it was the thing that sparked the whole journey of this season. So it was something that we all puzzled over a lot together, and even to when we were actually shooting it, we shot the whole thing in one evening. So we did the inside of the house, which felt good, and then we went outside and we had the mulch argument about dinner with Bono, and that was all good. And then, wait, have you guys seen it?
Yeah.
Because Oscar just said they haven't seen it, and I was like, oh no, we
gotta
can't
call
say
me out.
we can't say anything. All right, so we did those 2 bits, and then we went into the inside bit, and that's where we just started going like, we couldn't find a rhythm to why the fight escalated to the point where I would start smashing things up. In fact, we couldn't even get to a glass of wine being thrown, which needed to be the thing that led to the sort of the rage room moment. There was something about the nature of the insult that I was saying to Oscar that just wasn't, I don't think it was sort of really bothering you as much as that it should have done. There's something about the rhythm of the way we were getting to the climax of the fight that didn't work. And we did it a couple times and it didn't work. And then finally, and Sonny was just sort of watching, and you could see his, probably eating a burrito, but like really concentrating. That's how Sonny likes to direct. But at a certain point, he just came over, and I was like getting into quite a sort of frustrated place because I felt like I was just being a really bad actor. And he said, "No, the line's not right. I don't think you want to say that. I don't think you want to say that. I think you want to say, you've wasted my whole life. That's what you want to say." And I was like, that is what I want to say. And then I said that, and then Oscar's response to that came, and then suddenly we had the I hate you, and then why don't you just divorce me? Because you spent all my money on your mother, which is probably the worst thing I've ever said in anything. But then we had it, and then the glass went, and then we had the violence. But it was like Sonny's ability to see live what the problem was, and to be able to adjust it and come up with that kind of a line was just, yeah, it's brilliant.
Well, and also to highlight some folks on here too, like, I can highlight that, but it really, Jake over there on the end, he directed 201, and we're close collaborators because we have a shorthand that he's kind of come up with a filmmaking rubric for Beef that is very perspective driven. And when you're pivoting and you're trying to do a perspective driven show, you can't just, that's why so many people just hose down shows. But Jake was able to be so nimble and know exactly how to cover it. I don't know, Jake, if you want to speak to your rubric at all.
Oh, the rubric? Well, there's a thing that we sort of, tried to embrace in season 1, which was this idea of perspective, and Sonny writes with so much perspective, and the challenge was to figure out how to kind of enforce that in the visuals and come up with something. And so the camera is always closer to Amy and Danny than anyone else that's in the scene with them, like this idea of imbalanced coverage where it'll be like a clean single on Amy and then a dirty reverse on anyone else in the scene, or the camera being much further away. And even though many visual things are different in the season, and James Laxton brought a whole different visual approach, we wanted to keep that kind of, we talked about it, it's like, do we want to change that? And Sonny was like, let's keep the rubric. But there are now so many perspective characters, and so having to really go through with him and all of the actors and figure out whose perspective we wanted to favor in each one of these scenes. And when I think in that night, obviously we talked about wanting to really let you guys go, like we weren't going to do fancy moves, but there still is a kind of approach behind it where we're underpinning that writing and the sense of perspective with a visual language that is consistent through the show.
Well, that leads me to a question for Laura, which is, the her point of view on the show is so complex and is always shifting. And so for you as an editor, what are some of the challenges of that, and what are the factors that determine whose point of view you're in any given moment?
Well, this was the biggest challenge from season 1 to season 2. With season 1, it was Danny and Amy, and here we had basically 6 main characters. So every scene had to be broken down by whose scene is it, what moment does it even switch within that scene? And we found different ways to balance it. My co-editor, Lauren Connolly, had this great wall card template. So every scene, we had an index card with a frame, and we had those up on our walls in our cutting rooms, and we would just stare at them, move scenes around. And we found that sometimes the scripts would be intercut, so we'd be with Ashley and Austin, and then Josh and Lindsay, and trying to balance it that way. But as we were watching the episodes, we realized we were sometimes losing track of characters' motivations. And so we would actually reshuffle the scene, so we would spend like a little more time with Josh. Like we see him lose at the poker game, and then we want to get to him selling his stuff a little bit sooner. So little things like that just helped reinforce the character's motivation, and just being cognizant of like who we needed to focus on when, and just really honing in on that.
Something else that's really interesting about the show is the way that music also kind of conveys point of view and character. I mean, there's a lot of the characters on the show, and we can talk about this later too with the actors, you know, everyone on this show is constantly keeping secrets from themselves and each other and things like that. And how do you find a musical language that's going to kind of convey the emotional content that sometimes the characters themselves aren't even expressing?
I mean, that was the thing that Jake and Sunny and I talked about a lot throughout the process. I got to go in and sit with them and present new music while they're in the editing room working on episodes, and I think that was a lot of the sort of goal, was this juxtaposition, right? There's, you know, the thing that you're seeing on screen and the thing that you want to, you know, marry that with, right? So there's moments where the exterior, much like the exterior of Josh's life as this general manager at this country club, is beautiful and serene, but you know that there's a whole war, and he's stressed out, and he's in debt, and he's doing this duplicitous thing, and he's trying to navigate this scenario with this young couple. And I think that a lot of the sort of goal, hopefully, was that the music was helping illustrate that kind of undercurrent of anxiety and stress throughout.
And how did the country club setting inform your approach to the score? Because I read that you were using like sort of almost sound design aspects in the music that were connected to that.
I sure had fun going to country clubs and putting headphones on and holding microphones at like sprinkler systems and recording those. I just like the kind of, again, there is this beauty, but the thing that it, you know, takes to achieve that is this intense, obsessive care, right? There's always hedges being manicured, and there's staff attending to everything, and hopefully you don't even feel that as a sort of a person partaking in the thing, you know, playing a game of golf. But if you ever drop something or spill a beverage environment like that, you see this kind of like immediate scurry of action happening. So I just wanted to sort of, again, I was, you know, making these first pieces of music as they were just starting to shoot, even before they'd start. And so I just thought, well, if I can't see it yet, I do want to hear it. I do want to, you know, give myself a kind of a world to walk around in.
Now, Sunny, you mentioned that you wanted to kind of keep and expand on the sort of Korean DNA of season 1 and season 2, and one of the ways you do that, obviously, is casting 2 legends. You've got Miss Youn and you've got Song Kang-ho. Talk a little bit about the conception of those characters and how you came to cast them.
Well, you know, we knew that the Chaebol Society would be very integral to Charles's character's tug-of-war identity crisis, and I was just trying to imagine kind of the most powerful chairwoman that could embody that role. And you know, there's really only one human being on this planet, and that is Queen YJ over there. And I met with her, and her one request was like, she's you know, very self-deprecating, and she's always saying how her English is so bad, and that as long as I don't write her English lines. And I lied, and I said, yeah, no, you're a billionaire, so you'll have a translator. You can speak in Korean. And then I handed her a script with many English lines, and it was too late, contract was signed. And then, you know, she really delighted in the idea that having a husband 20 years younger, that no one in Korea would do that for her. And so we both had the idea of going after Song Kang-ho, you know, one of my favorite actors of all time. And he initially said no, straight up was like, no thanks. And Queen YJ again just was like, you know what, I'm gonna call him. And I forget, what did you say? Do you remember?
He thought I was threatening him, but actually I'm convincing him. I told him, he said, it's not fitting to me. He said, that role is not fitting to him. So I told him, you are the best actor in Korea that I know. You can play any role. You should do it. We call master instead of 선생. You know, the 선생님. How should I explain 선생님 in English?
Kind of like teacher.
Yeah,
It's a
teacher.
very respectful way of addressing
Can
someone.
I elaborate more, master? he said, oh, teacher, please, let me think about it. And then later on, I got a phone call from Sunny. After 36 hours later, he said he will do it. So I felt like he was threatened by me.
Well, I didn't know they had talked. I just got a sheepish text from him. I was like, hey, change of heart. So
Well,
thank you so much.
And what was it like acting opposite him? Because the two of you had never actually been on screen before, right?
No, that was my first time. Me like old school in Korean as a Korean actress, and he's new school. So first when I have a scene with him, I was very shocked because I didn't know how to react. Every takes he makes different lines and everything, different actions. So I didn't know how to react. But later on, I enjoyed him because he's new school actor, and I'm old school.
Something else that I really love about this show is with both of the couples, they're just completely convincing as couples with histories. I mean, obviously, you both have a longer history than Cailee and Charles' characters, but I'm curious about how you create that sense of shared history on screen and chemistry. Like, Cailee, for you and Charles, what kind of work did the two of you do together ahead of time? And is chemistry something that you can actually build and construct, or is it just kind of luck to a certain extent?
It's sort of luck, I think. And we jumped right in. I was like, oh, hey, family. His family's from Kansas and mine is from Missouri. So I don't know, we got cast in this pretty early on. There was a whole process of getting it on its feet. So we had a lot of time to hang out. We took our families to a Kansas City Chiefs game during Christmas, and
I was acting during that because I'm an Eagles fan.
yes. What else did we do? Yeah.
You two created an elaborate backstory too for how you met, your first kiss.
Oh my God, we
And
did.
yes. and
We made playlists.
And they're so dedicated to prep. They kept sending me like self-help books on Amazon, and like, we should all read this. I was like, yes, I have the
I read
time to read.
I
that.
read them too.
Well, and didn't you also, I read that you gave them like letterboxed lists of like movies to watch and things like that? What were some of those movies?
I did. I mean, there was like Director Park's Handmaiden, Michael Clayton. I also send a lot of documents. We actually did a quiz for our socials to see who had read all the documents, and only Oscar had read them all.
Personality
Yeah, I read
test?
them.
We took personality test. Do you remember that?
Yeah, no, we did.
Yeah?
We did. Yeah, we did a lot of things just to try to get in the headspace, but then ultimately you get on set and it sort of is like all out the window in a weird way. And I think for me, it was less about like the technicalities of like, hey, watch this movie, so like we're gonna rip off something from, Handmaiden or something like that. But it's more just, I think it's just the constant dialogue and the constant talking that just, I don't know, just something like, it's like tuning our frequencies to each other a little bit. And, I think as a creative, what's so humbling is everyone on here up here is just so talented that they could have clocked in and out and given great performances, But I mean, each person, from those self-help books to, I mean, I feel like every other day we were all on the phone with each other. All those, we as writers can do the story math and put it all down, but I mean, they're supplying the real life textures. And I think that's why when you watch the show, it feels so lived in, is because everyone up here was so generous about their experience.
But we all have to be welcomed in to do something like that. I think that's what makes it so unique. And for someone as precise and observant as Sunny is, to be able to have the bravery, really, because out of insecurity, people want to hold on to what they know or what they feel is going to work or what's worked before. But to have that kind of space to, bring somebody into their process and actually create something together, that's a very different thing, especially on something that is so complex. 6 main characters, all these different points of views, all these different perspectives. so much going on, and yet for every one of us, and for heads of department, all of us being able to bring our own unique points of view, and for that to be welcomed and infused into what you see, that's a very rare situation, because I've been around a long time at this point, and that doesn't happen very often, and that's why it feels particularly personal. Like at every stage of it, it feels like people are speaking about from their own real personal experience.
Well, and you and Carey have obviously worked together multiple times now, and I'm curious, the two of you, sort of similar to what I was asking Charles and Cailee, like how do the two of you work together to create this sense of shared history, and also just, I feel like you could feel the years of both love and resentment, like that the scene where after Burberry disappears and the two of you have the argument. It is just like, I completely bought that these were people who had been together for a long time, and that we were hearing like decades of just seething resentments coming out.
We don't have decades of seething resentment. You're nodding like, yeah.
I do.
We've hated each other for a long time. Well, I do think we had a hack in that we had, we sort of placed our timeline on our real life timeline in a way, in that we did meet in 2010 for the first time on Drive, and so we imagined that that's probably when Josh and Lindsay met, and so the invented part of our life was like taking our friendship and making it what this marriage was, and using that timeline a little bit. And also that we had worked together, that we felt we had done a little bit on two things together, on Inside Llewyn Davis and on Drive, but we'd never got, and for years we have been doing a thing of saying, like, if you read a thing and there's a girl in it, which is, and if there's a guy, it's him, but on this, that was what happened, really. It was like, who's gonna be your wife, And so I finally got off the bench and got drafted in to come and fight with him again, which was such a pleasure. But we had a lot of that history and know each other. But I also felt like because I trust Oscar, because he's my friend, but also I think he's such an incredible actor, I felt like we could just take big swings, and that, with Jake and Sonny, like with such watchful eyes in the writing and directing, like, there was a freedom to this that is quite hard to get, and I think that comes with having a scene partner that you're like, oh, I can basically do anything, and it will, and I can completely embarrass myself, which you actually have to do quite a lot in Beef. I think everyone will agree. There's like a decent amount of humiliation that comes with being a part of this. But like, if you can do that in a sort of with people that you trust, that's so fun.
Embrace the cringe, right? That was kind of the idea, but it was about trying to synchronize tonally as well. I think that's what a lot of what we would do. I remember because you talk about music. I remember I called you and I was like, I feel like we're doing too much like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, And then you were like, yeah, but we're Nirvana, we're making Nevermind. And I was like, no, you already made Nevermind. We're doing In Utero. It's got to be weirder. So this is the kind of fights we would have together.
Well, in terms of, go ahead.
No, I definitely remember that. and we for some reason speak a lot in music, and I think that's what was fun about all these exchanges, is because, it's the push and pull of it. There were a lot of like, everyone up here gives like these long monologues throughout the whole season, and I think as writers, our first instinct is to kind of go for the middle, and I think, and then Oscar's instinct sometimes is to go for like pure jazz. But then, and I love jazz. I don't want to pull a Chalamet tonight. I love jazz so much.
Nice save.
But it really is like the push and pull that lands us in this kind of weird Venn diagram that is constantly like pushing us the right amount, I think.
Well, in terms of what Carey was saying about needing to kind of be fearless and be able to jump off the cliff and everything, Jake, I'm curious, like, what kind of environment do you try to create on the set for the actors so that they can feel that freedom and that fearlessness?
I think just, I don't know what environment. I think they're also incredibly good at what they do, that it's mostly about just giving them the space to do it and having them know that Sunny and I are watching and have an eye on where it all needs to go, and that there is that everyone around, including everyone up here, is working as hard as they are to make sure that that's framed in a way where, you know, what they give can be honored. So, you know, it's not like a breathing exercise or a kind of set thing that you do, as much as just feeling like everyone's showing up to do their best, and that if they give something or if they have something that they want to bring to it, that it'll be honored.
One thing I want to make sure I ask about before we go is, you know, Olga, there's an actor who is not on the stage tonight, who's very important on the show, is Burberry, the dog. I'm wondering, did you also, in addition to the humans, did you dress Burberry? And if so, what were those fittings like?
Really hard. Really hard. No, Burberry is #1 on my call sheet forever. And so fun, so photogenic. I feel like those was really pumped to send those photos to Sunny.
Well, I believe we actually have a special guest here in the audience who is going to come up and join us from the show.
Give it up for Jones. See what he has to say. Jones, please tell us about your process and what you had to do to get into this role.
Wow!
Oh, that's amazing. But truly, he is going to be a future Oscar winner, because it's like, no joke, not just saying this, like the best dog actor I've ever seen in my life. Like, so present, like always correct.
He let us know this all the time on set.
Literally, this was all Sunny talked about.
Yes, yeah, no, like.
It's kind of triggering for the rest of us. We're like desperate for affirmation.
Yeah. I remember one day, like, I was like, Jones, you did a great job. You're so good at acting. And I look over and Carey's like, what the hell?
Not one note. I've got one.
But no, I mean, look at him. He brings it back up on stage. I mean, one more time for Jones, everybody.
Well, I could talk to you guys about this show all night. I really love it, but I know we have a couple episodes to watch, so I'll wrap this up. But thank you all so much for coming out and talking with me, and thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.